Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. All right, y'all, we got sound. Mic check, mic check. All right, if the sound goes out, scholars, please let me know, okay? Scholars in the audience, let me know. Again, yesterday, I found out today that yesterday's presentation, after I presented it, the sound was removed. So I guess YouTube removed the sound. If that happens again, let me know. Okay, put it in the comment section or call me. If you have the number here, the call-in number, call me. This is a very, very important presentation that we're going to do right now. Okay, y'all? Really very important. All right, a lot of things to discuss. Yesterday, I was hoping we could do a call-in show to discuss a lot of these issues. And they're really big issues, y'all, really big issues. Give me one moment, please, okay? Let's give it a moment for other people to come in. I also have to grab my book. Some of you may know that I was supposed to be traveling, but that didn't happen. So give me 1 second. Let me get my book. Please text, call your family and friends and let them know that we are live now. Invite them to come here because this is an important presentation. All right. Really, really important presentation. So give me 1 second, y'all. Go ahead and invite your friends and family now, please. So take a few minutes and invite your family and friends. We're going to begin in just a few moments. All right. All right. So here's what we do. I want to say first, welcome to those of you who are or who have been with us from the beginning of this video series. Welcome. And we do appreciate the amount of discipline, commitment, and interest that you've shown in this topic. So that is commendable. Those of you who have been here from the beginning. And then also those of you who came in late, right? But you've been here for many, many videos, many, many presentations. So congratulations to you also and welcome. And then for those of you who this is your first time, welcome. Welcome to Astrotheology, the presentation of the Devil's Pulpit, which is a book that is a composition of sermons that were given in the 1810, well, in the early 1800s, 1810, 1820, 1830. This particular chapter that we're reading is a sermon that was given in 1831. Okay, so this was a long time ago, almost 200 years ago. And although this is a difficult read, what I'm doing for you is reading it, explaining it, giving commentary, and showing graphics when needed to help you understand. But I am not trying to make you change your belief system or your religion. That's not what this is about. I just want to say that up front, okay? Because This is a really, really, really heavy, heavy topic, y'all. Those of you who've been here, you know it. This is a heavy topic, and this author's writing style and the content will make you think deeply and differently about everything you have accepted as true in your religion, and everything that you have learned in your religion will be presented to you as something that you need to question. All right. So that said, welcome, 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 welcome. This is not about devils and demons and stuff like that. The author makes his claims and then backs it up with science. Okay, specifically philology, linguistics, etymology, and history in the form of mythology and church father writings. Okay, so now that said, we are on part 3 of the lecture on Freemasonry. Part 3 on the lecture on Freemasonry. And there's a lot of stuff here, y'all. There's a lot of stuff to discuss, okay? So I'm going to call your attention to the things that I think are extremely worthy of doing a call-in show where you all can state your opinion, present your analysis, so on and so forth, okay? But we'll only do it if you want to do it, okay? So you may have a different opinion than me, but in my opinion, this is a critical chapter in this book, and information is presented that we need to deal with, y'all. We need to deal with it, and you'll see why as we get into it, okay? So let me go ahead and start to prepare for the presentation. All right. Just keep in mind, scholars, keep in mind that this is not meant to try to make you change your religious beliefs. It's not meant to try to make you change anything about who you are right now. The purpose of this and all of these presentations is to give you information so that you can make informed, educated decisions consciously about what you believe and how you live. And we went through the various reasons for that. All right, Gary Tucker writes, Shalawama, I'm back. Let's go. Good to see you, Gary Tucker. Shalawama. All right, so let's get to it, y'all. Let's get to it. All right, so now let me also say this. Some people may begin to, may experience cognitive dissonance. Okay, that's very, very likely. Some people may begin to experience or undergo cognitive dissonance. You'll know that if you start to feel angry, defensive, or any other type of negative emotions toward the content or toward me or toward this video series, okay, or toward other people in the comments section. That's how you'll know that you're undergoing cognitive dissonance, but that's okay because it's expected and it's totally normal. All right, but just understand that if you start to feel angry, sad, or you want to argue, dispute, whatever, you are experiencing cognitive dissonance. All right, so that said, let's go ahead and get started with our presentation. So we are on page 263. Okay. We are on page 263. The first verse that we're going to consider is, I'm going to highlight it, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20. So I'll go ahead with the reading. Quote, now the capital God of peace, that brought again from the dead our capital Lord JC, the Christ figure, the great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant, make you perfect in every good work to do his will, working in you that which is well pleasing in his sight, through JC, the Christ figure, to whom be the glory forever and ever. And then we see the deity's name that is spelled AMMON. So y'all, I'm no longer going to pronounce these deities' names, okay? I'll explain that a little bit later. Now, again, the Hebrew Israelites and the Christians will tell you that this is actually a Hebrew word, okay? Now, me personally, I'll give you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that I disagree with that. Why would, and if you think about it just logically, the Most High says, don't let other deities' names come out of our mouth. Why then would we have this word ending every prayer that is the name of a deity? Y'all see that? Why then? Okay. Why? But that's another story. You decide. You decide. Don't take my word for it. You study it. You put some attention to it, and then you decide for yourself. Okay. But that's just my rationale. Okay. Now let's get into the text. Let's get into the text, y'all. And there's going to be some doozies in this text. Okay. There's some doozies in this text. So here we go. Now, the capital God of peace, that's a question. Now, the capital God of peace. One, what's the meaning of capital God of peace? Very good question, right? What's the meaning of capital God of peace? Two, second question. What's the difference between the capital God of peace and the peace of capital God? That's a very good question. Which the parsons tell us passeth all understanding. So the peace of capital God that passes all understanding. What is the meaning of that? Now remember, we are engaging in what? Critical thinking. Critical thinking, which is what? Asking questions, doubting, comparing, analyzing by using or asking questions. Let's consider. And by the way, you can tell how much a person knows about a topic by asking questions, right? But then you can also know how much they know about a topic by the questions that they ask. And how many capital GODs are there? So that's question number 3. How many capital GODs are there? Now, Zion Law School scholars will know the significance of the issue regarding capital God. If you are unfamiliar with this topic about capital God, be sure to watch our video presentation of Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. Okay, you'll see the etymological meaning and significance of capital God. All right. All right. So now let's continue. And how many capital GODs are there, since we read not only of a capital God of peace, but of a capital God of battles and a capital God of mercy and the capital God of wrath and the capital God of this world and a capital God of heaven. With this most curious distinction that it is the capital God of peace who alone is called the very, that's capital V, capital E, capital R, capital Y. Okay? With this most curious distinction that it is the capital God of peace who alone is called the very, capital G-O-D, of peace. That's coming from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23. And in the Nicene Creed, the very, capital G-O-D, of very, capital G-O-D. Y'all see it again. So who are all of these capital G-O-Ds? Okay, Zion Law School scholars have studied this and are aware of what this is all about, okay, etymologically, okay, and how this presents itself specifically in the book of Genesis chapter 1. But if you know that, you know how it presents throughout the whole of the Hebrew scriptures. All right. All right, now let's continue. And in the Nicene Creed, the very, capital G-O-D, of very, capital G-O-D. So what does that mean? Right? Now remember, we are criticizing, asking critical questions. This is learning. And these, let me repeat that, and there some capital G-O-Ds that are not very G-O-Ds. Let me repeat that again. Are there some capital G-O-Ds that are not very capital G-O-Ds? Everybody got that? So the author is asking, he's saying, well, listen, there are a lot of different capital G-O-Ds. Some of them are very capital G-O-D, right? Some are very. So are there some that are not capital G-O-Ds? So in other words, we need to identify who these capital G-O-Ds are. And then once we identify them, we need to categorize which ones are very capital G-O-D and which ones are only capital G-O-D. That's what the author is writing. Let's continue. And their summer capital G-O-Ds. Now, scholars, this whole time we should have been thinking what? Astronomically, but the author clearly is indicating that we need to think astronomically right now when he mentions summer, right? So let's continue. Let's continue. We're reading, let's see. Okay. Are there some capital G-O-Ds that are not capital G-O-Ds? Are there summer capital G-O-Ds, autumn and winter capital G-O-Ds, as well as very or verily? Oops, I made a mistake there. Hold on, y'all. Are there summer capital G-O-Ds, autumn capital G-O-Ds, and winter capital G-O-Ds, as well as very or spring capital G-O-Ds? Y'all see what the author is bringing to our attention? Each season, that would be what? Every 3 months, there's a change in season. The author is asking if each season has its own capital G-O-D. And of those capital G-O-Ds within each season, which capital G-O-Ds are very capital G-O-Ds and which are not? Or are all capital G-O-Ds very capital G-O-Ds? This is what the author is wanting us to think about. All right, let's go back to the chapter. So we are now thinking astronomically, right? In other words, we are putting the image of the celestial globe in our minds, and we're thinking based upon that, right? Where we're looking at the equinoctial points and the celestial points, right? Not celestial, but the solstices, right? Summer solstice, winter solstice, spring equinox, March equinox. Okay, this is what we need to be thinking about. The celestial equator, and then also the eclipse, which is the orbit of the sun. This is what we need to be thinking about when I speak of thinking astronomically. All right. Now, within each, on that, or in that illustration, in that mental image, you will also want to call to mind the constellations, okay, as they are in that image. All right, let's continue. Excuse me. See, this is very easy, very, very easy once you get used to it, right? Once you get used to it, it's very easy and it's repetitive. All right, so let's continue. And why is it that the very capital God and the verily, verily way of speaking always stands in connection with something about a sheep or a mutton or a ram or a lamb or a tuck or a ewe or a Rachel or a shepherd or a sheepfold? That's a good question, right? Every time you're talking about a very capital God or the verily, verily way of speaking, all of these things come up that whole list that we just read comes up. Why is that? Never is the association varied. So the author is saying every time you see one of these items in the list, you're going to either see very capital God or verily, verily. All right, now let's continue. Never is the association varied. It is the capital God of peace that brings back the shepherd from the dead after he has been dead as mutton. And why is it that always our ideas have been led to the verily, verily shepherd of the sheep? So let me turn the page, y'all. All right, there we go. Let's continue. let me read that again. All right, so I'm going to read that last sentence again. And why is it that always, after our ideas have been led to the verily, verily shepherd of the sheep, we are admonished that we must go to plow, quote, to every good work and labor, end quote, in the cultivation of the earth. And then JC, the Christ figure, is defined as, quote, to whom be glory, end quote. That is, in whom is sunshine. And then we see the deity's name who's spelled, we see the deity whose name is spelled AMMON. So now we also see more references to astronomy, don't we? We see more astronomical references. So again, the author is indicating to us that there's a lot of astrology going on here. All right. In other words, a lot of astrotheology going on here. So let me just bring something to your attention to assist you. So when we see to every good work and labor, that should call to mind the spring equinox, which is the covenant or the covenant of labor, which is the point at which you must begin plowing and preparing and plowing your field, planting your seed, and doing all of that agricultural labor, all of that work. Now, who's doing the work? We recall from the last presentation that it is the new initiates. Remember, Masonically, it is the new initiates who are doing all of this work. All right. In the spring or vernal equinox. All right. So that calls to our attention. Also, cultivation of the earth, right? So this is calling our attention to astronomy. Okay. Now, JC is defined as to whom be glory. Now, what is glory? Those of you who are subscribed to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course, our streaming course, you will know that glory is also sunshine. Glory is sunshine. If you are subscribed to the those of you who are subscribed to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course, and you've reached the part of that streaming course where this topic is discussed, you will know, again, you will know that glory is sunshine. How many people relate JC the Christ figure's glory to sunshine that are in the church? They don't, right? They don't. They have a completely different idea of what glory is. They don't relate it to sunshine, but in fact, it is sunshine. All right. Now, again, we see the deity, right? So now I gave you my opinion on this matter about this deity, whether it is a Hebrew word or an actual deity. And I gave you a brief reason why I do not accept it. Okay, in my opinion, it is the name of a deity, but you have to do your own research, right? Make your own decision. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Here we are. We'll start at the highlight. And not these questions, the like of which a rational man would ask. So the author, in that strange way of writing, is saying that all those questions that we just read in the last paragraph, the author is saying, well, isn't it that the questions that I just asked in the last paragraph are reasonable questions? Any man in his right mind, man or woman in their right mind, would ask those very same questions. That's what the author means in the sentence that we just read. And on which he would insist on receiving the most ample satisfaction in any matter which concerned, or which he thought might concern, his temporal interest. So the author is saying that the man who asks rational, reasonable questions would expect honest and reasonable answers, not pie in the sky answers and crazy answers. Like, for example, well, you can't see it because you ain't got the spirit. You don't see it because you don't have the spirit. Or you're asking those questions because you don't have the spirit. Y'all see what I'm saying? So that's on its surface ridiculous, right? Because how are you going to know what somebody else has? Just because they have a different point of view, or because they're asking questions that you're not asking, therefore they don't have the spirit. So you see, on its surface, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's ridiculous, okay? But that's what they tell people in the church, right? You go ask a pastor or elder or whomever in the church, or whatever your religious organization is in Christianity, you go asking a bunch of questions and they'll say, oh, well, brother or sister, you don't have the spirit. That's why you don't see it. Or it's not for you right now. You know, some crazy answer like that, rather than giving you a straightforward answer. For example, let's continue reading. For example, say that it might be something which would give him a title. Okay, now say you're dealing with the matter that would give you a title, like, for example, a title like manager, supervisor, a title like doctor, engineer, teacher, professor. Y'all see what I'm saying? Say that it might be something that would give him a title. In other words, you're dealing with the matter. You're dealing with the matter. Or what about like this? What about something like this? Heir. What about heir? The title is heir. Okay, somebody expires in your family and they had a will and they are leaving property. So you need to be an heir, right, to get the property. Okay, so what if it's a matter like that that you're dealing with? Okay, so now you would ask very specific thoughtful and rational questions, and you would expect clear answers, clear, direct, straightforward answers, right? This is what the author is wanting us to think about and compare. In other words, compare these questions that we just read in the previous paragraph that have to do with Christianity and your religion and your spiritual fate, quote unquote. Compare that to another matter where you're dealing with titles, like being an heir. You might get an inheritance, some property, or a title like professor, doctor, engineer, something like that. Okay, now you're asking those questions, so let's continue. Say that it might be something which would give him a title, or claim to receive 20 or 100 or 10,000 pounds, right? That's money, right? Compare your religious situation to you getting some money. Or bring him under an obligation. So you're getting some money, or you're having to pay a debt. Okay, maybe the debt is not yours, right? So you're going to ask a lot of specific questions, aren't you? Because if the obligation or that debt doesn't belong to you, for example, well, you're not going to want to pay it, right? So you're going to ask questions to either prove or disprove that that's not your debt, right? Let's continue. Or bring him under obligation to pay or make good some such a sum, according as the letter and spirit of the document should determine. All right. So the author wants us to compare again the questions that we ask or don't ask regarding our spirituality in Christianity to a situation that involves money or an inheritance or a debt. So compare the questions you would ask in both of those situations, okay? Now let's continue. Let's continue with the highlight. Would he, or let's say would you treat the copy of a lease, a will, or title deed as you treat what he calls a revelation from capital G-O-D, who made it? In other words, the author is saying, would you blindly accept a copy of a lease? In other words, you wouldn't read it and study it thoroughly so you understand exactly what's in that lease, so that you understand exactly what's in that will, so that you understand exactly what's in that title deed, right? And you would ask intelligent questions, and you would demand intelligent answers, right? So the author is saying, well, let me just read it again. Would he, that he is you, would he treat the copy of a lease, a will, or a title deed as he, or that is as you treat what is called a revelation from capital G-O-D? Y'all got that? So the pastor or the translator of a Bible or a Bible commentator is giving you a revelation of JC the Christ figure, a revelation of capital G-O-D in your religion. He's giving you this revelation, and you're sitting there accepting it. He's giving you the doctrine, and you ain't asked nan question. You haven't asked nan question to understand and to see if this stuff is true. You're just sitting there accepting it. Whereas if it involved a lease where you're going to get to use some property and you're going to have to pay some money, or a will where you're going to receive an inheritance or you're going to leave property to someone, or a title deed for property, then you're going to ask all kinds of intelligent, rational questions to make sure everything is all right. You understand everything so that everything goes well. But in the area of religion, this revelation given to you by some Bible translator, by some pastor, Moshe, whatever, you're going to sit there and not ask any deep, intelligent questions. You're just going to accept it. That's what most people do. This is what the author wants to bring to our attention. Now, let's continue. Let's continue. A revelation from the all-wise, capital G-O-D, on the proper understanding and due obedience to which his eternal happiness or eternal misery is at stake. So in other words, the author is saying your eternal fate, whether you're going to burn in hell or live it up in heaven, depends on this revelation by capital G-O-D. But you just accepted it blindly. But the stakes are high. In fact, there is no greater stakes. Okay, there is no greater stakes. There is nothing more important. But you just accept it without even thinking about it. You just accept it. All right. So now let's continue. A revelation from the all-wise, capital G-O-D, on the understanding and due obedience to which his eternal happiness or eternal misery is at stake. A revelation originally written in Greek. Take a minute to digest what he just said. Take a minute to digest that. The author is telling, the author's message here is as follows. This revelation from capital G-O-D and your acceptance or rejection of it, and remember, there are many revelations. Almost every Christian church, almost every Hebrew Israelite camp, they all have their own doctrine, right? They all have their own doctrine about the revelation, okay? End time prophecy, so on and so forth. They all have their own. Now, at risk is you burning in hell, you going to heaven, or you living on earth, you being resurrected, you living in the kingdom. That's what's at risk, right? Your eternal fate is at risk. And the Most High, right, the capital G-O-D in this context, gives you a revelation, but he gives it to you in Greek. He gives it to you in Greek. But yet, this revelation is going to decide whether you burn in hell, go to heaven, or you live on earth in capital G-O-D's kingdom. But he gives it to you in Greek, not your own language. He gives it to you in a language that you do not understand or speak. He gives it to you in Greek. Yet you sit there and don't ask intelligent questions. You just accept whatever that pastor or rabbi or imam tells you. You accept it like a sheep, although it concerns your eternal well-being, burning in hell, living it up in heaven, or whatever your conception is of entering into capital G-O-D's kingdom. Y'all see it? He gave it to you in Greek. Well, hey, that don't seem fair. Why you give it to me in Greek instead of the language that I speak and that I can read? Why you give it to me in Greek? Well, let's continue. let's continue. Well, wait a minute, y'all. Let me check the comments first before I continue. Hold on, give me a second. Let me check the comments. Shalom, Roderick's point of view. Greetings on the way to work, but I'm listening. Excellent, excellent. Gary Tucker writes, Islam Roderick. Gary Tucker continues. One is not expected to question anything coming from the pulpit. It is frowned upon. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Y'all check this out. Oh, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, if you like the content, or if you just like me, for whatever reason, consider subscribing. Also, like and share the video. Y'all text some people, call some people, tell them to come in, tell them we're live and they're missing out. Okay, invite them to come here, please. All right, now let's continue, y'all. Think about this. Think about this. Your eternal fate is at stake, and the capital God gives you the information in Greek, and you speak English. What kind of stuff is that? Y'all ever looked at something and said, man, I don't understand that. That looked like Greek to me. Or, man, I don't understand that. It looked like Chinese to me. Why would the deity do that to you if he's so loving? But let me not jump ahead. Let's start reading at the highlight. A revelation from the all-wise capital God on the proper understanding and due obedience to which his eternal happiness or eternal misery is at stake. So who is he? He is you, the rational man or woman. A revelation originally written in Greek. Greek. Next paragraph. Greek. Let me hold on. Give me 1 second. So here we are, y'all. Next paragraph. Greek. My capital God. And would not a sensible man say, does not the all-wise capital God know that I am an Englishman? Meaning that I'm English, I don't speak Greek. I'm Spanish, I don't speak Greek. I'm Arab, I don't speak Greek, right? Or I'm from one of the nations on the continent. I don't speak Greek. Why you do that to me? So let's continue. And if he had any revelation which he wished me to attend to, why didn't he write it in plain English? Why didn't he write the revelation in plain Spanish? Why didn't he write the revelation in plain whatever language that everybody speaks so that everybody could understand it themselves? But let's continue. Let's continue. Let's let the author explain. Next paragraph. But the persons you see, very learned and entirely disinterested men, have kindly interpreted the affair. In other words, you have these very intelligent people who are disinterested. They don't want anything from you. They don't want anything from you. They are disinterested. They're highly educated. They're very learned and entirely disinterested men. Okay, they have kindly interposed into the affair. What is this telling us? These highly learned, intelligent men who don't want anything from you decided to say what? You know what? The revelation is written in Greek. I'm going to do you a favor. I don't want anything from you. I'm going to do you a favor and translate it into English for you, and translate it into Spanish for you, and translate it into every language on earth for you. But I don't want anything from you. I'm disinterested. This is what the author is saying. But the persons ye see very learned and entirely disinterested men have kindly interposed in the affair and have given us a translation out of the original Greek into the vulgar tongue. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? All right. So questions should come up, right? especially since we know the history of these religious organizations. And it is the religious organizations who are doing all of the Bible translations. And we know they are not disinterested. Correlate with Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Scholars, correlate this with Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Yes, they have. Oh, by the way, y'all, if y'all want to support the work that I'm doing, I would like to, if I get the support of the people, I would like to do the rendering or translation of the Torah into Ibaryath with the real meaning in English of each word and each verse, okay? And provide the part of speech with it, just like we show in our Saturday class, okay? I would like to do that. So I'm working on putting up a GoFundMe page. So if y'all want to support me so that I could have the time and not have to worry about money to produce this, and you know how I'm going to live and all of that kind of stuff, and my babies and all of that. If y'all want to support the production of a Torah and Ibaryath with the real meanings and with the grammar, the parts of speech, then consider making a donation once I get that GoFundMe account up and running. Y'all know that a project like this is a big project. I can't do it by myself. So if y'all want to support it so that you'll have the real meaning of these verses, you have the real meaning, the Ibaryath meaning of every word and every verse in that Torah, okay? And all of the lies will be removed out, okay? So consider donating if you want to see that project happen. So let's continue. Yes, they have. And the devil thank them for their interference. So in other words, the author is saying the devil thanks them for them translating the Gospels out of Greek into English, okay? Or into whatever language, right? He continues, I thought that there had been one mediator between capital G-O-D and man. Did y'all see that? Do y'all see that? This is a profound point. Simple as it may seem, but this is a profound point. Read that highlight. Read the highlight, scholars. It says here, I thought there had been but one mediator between capital G-O-D and man. But if there be no means of knowing the will of capital G-O-D, but by a revelation which requires to be translated, why? For capital G-O-D, there must be as many mediators as translators. Y'all got that? JC, the Christ figure, is supposed to be the mediator. But if you don't speak ancient Greek, you need a translator to be what? A mediator for you. So there are literally thousands of mediators. There are thousands of mediators. Y'all got that? Let me check for comments. Roger's point of view writes, Islam Gary. Gary Tucker writes, this causes people to subtly doubt their own intelligence and ability to use discernment. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So y'all, those of you who have not made a comment, I want to invite you to make some comments right now. Don't be stingy with your knowledge and your experience, okay? And then also, outside of teaching others, it helps to activate the YouTube algorithm so that the video can be pushed to more people. Our people really, really, really need to know this information. So again, let me read that again. So y'all let this marinate. The author writes, I thought there had been but one mediator between capital G-O-D and man. But if there be no means of knowing the will of capital G-O-D, but by a revelation, which requires to be translated, there must be as many mediators as translators. That makes perfect logical sense. That makes perfect logical sense. So y'all think about that. If you cannot read ancient Greek, then that means you need a mediator, a translator. Otherwise, you're going to burn in hell, right? Because you don't know what the will of your deity is unless you have a mediator, i.e. a translator. All right? Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. All right, y'all. I'm not laughing at anybody. I'm trying to enjoy. I'm trying to enjoy the presentation. Okay. So don't think I'm laughing at you if you are a New Testament person, because I'm not. All right. So now we're on the next paragraph. The author writes, but look then at the translation, such as the translators, these self-constituted mediators between capital G-O-D and man have given it to us. These very learned and entirely disinterested clergy, who, seeing that capital G-O-D wished to communicate his will to us in generous condescension to our ignorance and to capital G-O-D's ignorance as well as ours, have kindly interfered to tell us what capital G-O-D means. So now let's take a look at this. Y'all see that? The author is writing that the capital G-O-D is obviously incompetent. Why? Why is capital G-O-D incompetent? Well, according to the author, he's saying that if you leave it up, if you didn't put it in every man's language, then you're going to subject every man to harm, because they're going to have to rely on other men and women to give them your word. And you know they're going to lie, especially hybrids. You know the nature of a hybrid, right? This is what the author is saying. They're not going to tell you the truth. So the deity has to be incompetent if he thinks that these Bible translators are going to tell the truth 100%. No. Now let's take a look at this. So let's go to the Bible Hub. Here are examples of these disinterested, highly learned men, all right, who have done you a favor by, they don't want anything from the favor. They've done you a favor. They're totally disinterested. And they say, you know what? I'm going to translate the ancient Greek into English, into Spanish, into German, into, everything. Swahili. I'm going to do all of this and I don't want nothing from you. Out of the kindness of my heart. And y'all know the hybrid's nature, right? It's all about power, insecurity, power, control, insecurity, self-doubt, needing to oppress. Genesis chapter 1, right? Now, y'all see, here are various Bible translators. These are all religions who translate the Bible. I'm on Bible Hub, right? BibleHub.com. So y'all see all of these disinterested Bible translators. And then there's more. But there's literally thousands. All of these Bible translators, they don't want anything from you. They're disinterested. They just want to help you. If you believe that, then let me sell you a bridge. I got a bridge for sale. Okay, so Roderick's point of view writes, people don't look at it that way, and that's because people do not take the time to stop and think. That's right. That's right. And capitalism, I think, has a lot to do with that. Keep the people busy so that they don't have time to think. You know? So let's continue with the reading. I dare say capital G-O-D would have explained it himself if he could. Y'all see that? I dare say the capital G-O-D would have explained the revelation himself if he could. But here is the meaning brought down to the meanness of the meanest capacity, with this most singular advantage, that the meaner a man's capacity is, the better he is satisfied with the meaning. All right, so let's let the author develop this. Let's continue going, because I don't know where he's going with this. And so here, after quote, the bull's blood and the goat's blood and the ashes of a calf sprinkling the unclean, and JC the Christ figure suffering without the gate and sprinkling us with his blood and sanctifying us with his blood, end quote, and all sorts of nastiness, comes the wind up about the capital G-O-D of peace, about the capital G-O-D of peace, and the shepherd of the sheep, and the dead alive again, and the blood of the everlasting covenant, and JC the Christ figure, and glory forever and ever. And we see the deity's name whose name is spelled A-M-M-O-N. So what is this telling us? What is this telling us? This is calling to our mind what we read maybe 2 or 3 presentations ago. Y'all remember this? About the calf, the slaughtering the calves and the bloods, how the priest would go into a hole, and then over top the hole there would be wood planks with holes drilled in them, and then the calf would be slaughtered, cut open, and then his vomit, his blood, his intestines would pour out onto the wood planks, drip through the holes in the wood, and then the priest holding their heads upward, the blood would drop into their eyes, into their mouth, and all over their body. The blood, the vomit, and the feces, the cow dung, all in their faces and all over their bodies. Can you imagine how they smell? And better yet, put yourself in that hole and imagine you being the priest. Blood dripping in your mouth, cow dung dripping in your mouth, cow vomit, stomach content dripping in your mouth and all over your clothes. Oh my goodness, that's disgusting. So the author wants us to think about that. And then the author wants us to think about JC the Christ figure suffering without the gate. So JC the Christ figure suffering without the gate and sprinkling us with his blood. So JC's blood, he's, depending on how you believe, He's on the cross, he's on the stake, or he's hung, right? And his blood is dripping out, and then the blood is his blood is dripping on you. And y'all know blood stinks, right? Blood doesn't smell good. All right. And JC's suffering without the gate, the sprinkling us with his blood and sanctifying us with his blood. How are you going to clean somebody? Think about this logically, y'all. Blood smells bad, especially if it's hot. Death smells bad, especially if it's hot, temperature-wise, right? How does that sanctify and purify you? Right? Now, I know a religious person would say, oh, you got to, that's spiritual, right? I understand that. But think about it. Think about it in the real world, not with your imagination. Okay? Now, let's continue to go over this. So the author says, and all sorts of nasty comes the wind up. In other words, when the wind blows, you smell the blood, you smell the vomit, you smell the cow dung. It's disgusting, right? It's disgusting. When the wind blows, you smell all of that. And the capital G-O-D of peace, and the shepherd of the sheep, and the dead alive again, and the blood of everlasting and the blood of the everlasting covenant, and JC the Christ figure, and glory forever and ever. And then you see the deity's name, who spelled A-M-M-O-N. So this is a very disgusting series of events or images, right? These are disgusting, but they're written and presented as though they are something that's clean and beautiful, right? Using words like sanctify you, sprinkle us with his blood, and sanctify us with his blood, right? But literally speaking, it's disgusting. Y'all see it? But it's written in such a way as to invoke or evoke an emotional response through the imagination. In other words, you're disconnected from what that blood and vomit and cow dung actually smells like. And now you're in la la land with your imagination, imagining something holy that doesn't involve any smell, but it's actually the opposite, something that's clean, something that sanctifies you and washes you clean. Y'all see the mental game here that's being played on people? All right. This nasty, funky smell, this disgusting situation makes the dead alive again. And the blood of the everlasting covenant and JC the Christ figure and glory forever and ever and ever. And then it has the deity's name. So quite disgusting when you look at this literally, right? I think that's what the author wants us to think about, the literal meaning of this, and then contrast it with the imaginary meaning or the spiritual meaning that we are taught in Christianity. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. And sure, sirs, they who think it no presumption to translate to you, that's all those Bible translators we just looked at. And sure, sirs, they who think it no presumption to translate to you what it is that capital G-O-D means, ought not to persecute me for translating to you what it is that they mean. The author is saying this. Hey, look, these secret society members who are pastors, religious people, religious leaders, they are persecuting me. They took me to court, had me in prison twice. And then the author goes on to say that when he got out of prison, these same religious leaders, these pastors and reverends, branded the author, Robert Taylor, as the devil's chaplain, as revenge to destroy him, to turn the people against him. Why? Because he started telling the Freemason secrets about the Gospels. All right, let's continue reading. It is the secret of the Masonic craft. It is the secret of the priestcraft. It is the secret of the lawcraft and gospel craft. It is the secret of everything that is secret. And then he gives us this word that is spelled, and I'm not going to pronounce it because I don't know what it is yet. Capital G, capital A, capital M, capital M, capital O, capital N. Well, I know what it is already now. So y'all see the deity in that, right? So here's the deity. This is the same deity who they're closing their prayers with in Christianity, right? And perhaps other religions too, I don't know. But y'all see the same deity, capital A, M, M, O, N, and then we see the same deity here. All right, so what's the difference? The G prefix, the G prefix. All right, so now let's continue. Let's continue. All right, so I'm gonna start at one paragraph up. And sure, sirs, they who think it is no presumption to translate to you what it is that capital God means, that's all these Bible translators, okay, ought not persecute me for translating to you what it is that they mean. So the author is saying, I'm telling you what these Freemasons mean when they wrote this stuff. That's what the author is saying. Continue. It is the secret of the Masonic craft. It is the secret of priestcraft. It is the secret of lawcraft and gospelcraft. All right, so Masonic craft, priestcraft, lawcraft, and gospelcraft. It is the secret of everything that is secret. And then we see again the prefix G, and then we see the deity's name who spelled A-M-M-O-N. I got to get some water, y'all. Give me 1 second. So let's continue. Go to the door of a Masonic lodge. Give them 3 knocks. The dactylic knock, 1 long and 2 short. The anapastic knock, 2 short and 1 long. And the Adonic knock, which is 1 long, 2 short, and 2 long. 1, tum titi. No, tum titi. 2, titi tum. 3, tum titi, tum tum. So that's an example of the knocks that we just went through. All right. So let me explain this again. The didactic knock, that's number 1. See, 1 long, 2 short. The anapastic knock, 2 short and 1 long. So tum is long, titi is short, right? And then 3 would be the Adonic, okay? So I'm not going to go through that. I explained it. You can go back if you're curious for whatever reason. Next paragraph. And then, as our blessed Savior says, quote, knock, knock, and it shall be open unto you, end quote. And when it is open, bounce in upon them and cry, quote, capital G, A-M-M-O-N, end quote. Okay? And my life on it, if the master of the lodge will not recognize you for a royal arc mason without your ever having had your buttons taken off your clothes, a halter put round your neck, a dagger held to your breast, your eyes bandaged, or any other of those disgusting and filthy fooleries. He's talking about the ceremonies, right? The Masonic ceremonies, whose uses accounts for so many kings and princes and royal dukes having been Freemasons. So the author is saying that if you know, if you know those knocks, those three knocks, and then you know the secret password, which is capital G, capital A, capital M, capital O, capital N. If you know that, they'll let you into the lodge. Knock, knock, and it shall be open unto you. The author is saying that that is the Masonic meaning of what the Christ said, of what the Christ figure said. Knock, and it shall be open unto you, according to the author. Continue reading. Had any good or just feeling toward mankind been at the bottom of their mysteries, that's the Masonic mysteries, you would never have heard of a royal duke being at the top of them. So the author is saying that these royal dukes, these royal families, kings, etc., were corrupt, dirty, rotten people. That's what he means. The word capital AMMON, which is really and truly the identity, the very same as our word that is spelled capital AMEN. So these words are synonyms, y'all. They're the same meaning, which comes at the end of all of our prayers and creeds and collects, at the end of all titles and epithets of JC the Christ figure, and at the end of everything that is excessively nonsensical and mysterious, always signified the secret one, the hidden, the occult, and was uttered in low voice in intimidation to the mystics. And something was to be sought for. Notice this, y'all. When you're dealing with the deity whose name is spelled AMMON, and alternatively, it is spelled AMEN. When you're dealing with this deity, there's always what? There's always something that you have to seek. That something was to be sought for. That something was to be sought for. In other words, you got to search for something when you deal with this deity that was lost. You have to search for something that was lost and to be found again. So every time you deal with this deity, you must search for something that is lost and that needs to be found again. There was a subitor or subintellitor, something of which you were to give. Let me repeat that. Something of which you were to, quote, give it an understanding, but no tongue. So what the author is saying in this paragraph is that I've already said this, but when you deal with this deity, capital AMMON, alternatively spelled capital AMEN, you must, there's always an association with this deity and seeking for something, but you can't talk about it, but you must seek it, but you cannot talk about it. That's what the author is telling us. Let's continue reading. Last paragraph at the bottom of the page. Here we are. Last paragraph at the bottom of the page. Here we are. And in this case, it was one of the names of the deity whose name is spelled Jupiter, as a regularly closed his. Let me repeat that. And in this case, it was one of the names of the deity whose name is spelled Jupiter, and as regularly closed his catalog of titles. So that deity has many titles as those. So what are some of his titles? JC the Christ figure. signifying that the deity whose name is spelled Jupiter is the deity whose name is spelled capital Ammon. So they're the same deity, as it also signifies to those who look for significations that JC, the Christ figure, is also the deity whose name is spelled Ammon. These are all the same deity, but it has different names or different titles. Y'all got that? Let's continue. Let's continue. So here we see it now. So the deity whose name is spelled Jupiter hyphen Ammon, being precisely the same deity as JC the Christ figure, capital Amen, or as it stands at the beginning of a will in the name of capital God, and then we see the deity's name, Amen. And both the deity Jupiter, the deity Ammon, and the deity Ammon. I'm going to repeat that. And JC, the Christ figure, and the deity Amen are personifications of, let me highlight this. So all of those deities that we just read are personifications of, oops, I gotta go to the next page, y'all. Are personifications of the S-U-N, sun. All of these are the sun, S-U-N. Y'all got that? All of them are the S-U-N, sun. Now remember, y'all, scholars in the audience, this lecture on Freemasonry was given in the year 1831. That was before all of this social engineering, burning all, destroying all the information, changing all the information, right? 1831. All right. So all of these deities are personifications of the sun, S-U-N, who is capital J-U-P-I-T-E-R in spring. In other words, in springtime, in March 21, the S-U-N, sun, becomes the deity whose name is spelled J-U-P-I-T-E-R. All right, that's the sun in spring. The S-U-N, sun, becomes Christ in summer. Remember? So Christ is when the sun is at its zenith, the highest point in the sky. The sun, S-U-N, is the deity whose name is spelled J-E-S-U-S, that's J-C, right, in autumn. So the S-U-N, sun, in the fall or autumn is now called J-E-S-U-S, J-C. And in the winter, the sun, S-U-N, is called the deity whose name is spelled A-M-E-N. Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that? All right, so now we have the astronomical interpretation. Take a look at that. We have the astronomical interpretation, or we know who the sun, S-U-N, is in each of the seasons. Again, in spring, the vernal equinox, right? In spring, the S-U-N, sun, the name of the S-U-N, sun in spring is J-U-P-I-T-E-R. In summer, the name of the sun, S-U-N, changes to Christ. In the autumn, The name of the sun, S-U-N, changes to J-C, right? That's J-E-S-U-S. And in winter, the name of the sun changes to the deity whose name is spelled A-M-E-N. Hence, the mystic game of hide and seek, or bo peep, or blind man's bluff, or hunt the slipper, or something that was lost and again to be found. Something that was lost and you have to find it is what he means. Or something that was hidden and to be sought for, something that was hidden and you need to find it, which is the one common and universal conceit that runs through all the forms of religion that were ever in the world. Y'all got that? Y'all got that? You got to search and find. You got to search for something lost that must be found. And never, and what is that something that was lost that must be found? Clearly, it's the right doctrine. The so-called right doctrine was lost, is how I'm understanding it. I'm not saying that this is what the author is saying. I'm telling you my interpretation of what the author is meaning, what the author means. The author says that the correct doctrine has been lost. And now you have to find it. The correct doctrine of the revelation that will either lead you to burn in hell or live it up in heaven or live forever on earth. That right doctrine has been lost, and now your job, your duty is to search and find it. Hence the mystic game of hide and seek, or bo peep, or blind man's bluff, or hunt the slipper, or something that was lost and again to be found, or something that was hidden and ought to be sought for, which is the one common and universal conceit that runs through all forms of religion that ever were in the world, and never differing in any one religion from the ceremonies of any other. So that is not going to change all with religion. You'll always be searching for the right doctrine, which must be found. Why must it be found? Because you don't want to go burn in hell by worshiping the wrong doctrine or having the wrong doctrine. Isn't that so? Let's continue. Thus, Freemasons pretend to seek for the lost secrets of Hiram Abiff. Thus, Freemasons pretend to seek for the lost secrets of Hiram Abiff. We read about Hiram Abiff maybe 2 or 3 presentations ago. Notice the author is saying they pretend to seek. Thus, the Freemasons pretend, that's the key word, pretend to seek for the lost secrets of Hiram Abiff. The worshippers of the goddess, whose name is spelled I-S-I-S, seek for the remains of Osiris. That's right, right? She had to reconstruct his penis, if I remember the story correctly, or reconstruct his body or something. The Eleusinian Dionysian Adonic, the deity whose name is spelled B-A-C-C-H-U-S, the Masonic, the Jewish, and the Christian mysteries alike abound in the same figures of speech. What figures of speech? Search for it. Search for it, lost and found. All right? The same figures of speech about seeking for the capital L-O-R-D. Seeking for the capital L-O-R-D means what in Christianity, in religion? Seeking for the right doctrine. These religions are teaching there's only one right doctrine. Right? Okay, so They all alike abound in the same figures of speech about seeking for the capital Lord and calling on the name of the capital Lord. How many Christians and Hebrew Israelites are still to this day arguing and debating, getting angry at each other, putting each other down, threatening each other over the pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton, and calling on the name of the capital Lord as if to awaken him with the sort of, quote, holla, end quote, capital God Almighty. Where are you? Where are you? My capital Lord, capital God. Author is saying, hey, where are you? I'm calling you, but where is you? where is you at? Oh, that's funny. So y'all see what's happening here in this paragraph? The effect of searching, the effect of searching for something that's been hidden, the psychological impact or effect of searching for something that is hidden that must be found. What's the psychological impact of that? This, I think, is what the author wants us to consider. What is the psychological impact, the psychological effect of searching for something in religion that must be found, something that has been hidden that must be found, something that has been changed that must be found, that if you don't find it, you're going to burn in hell or you will die and never be resurrected? What's the psychological impact of that? All right. Now, there's another psychological impact. What's the psychological impact of believing that, okay, I'm going to search for this, and when I find it, I'm going to go to heaven. When I find it, if I die, I'm going to get resurrected, and I'm going to be in the deity's kingdom. What's the psychological impact of that also, right? So there's a negative and a positive. Most people will be motivated through fear, right? Because that's more carnal. Next paragraph. We begin with the highlight. All right. As you will observe, all these seekings for capital God begin with the mighty big O, as, quote, O, capital Lord, capital God Almighty, and O, capital Lord, JC the Christ figure, end quote, and end with the crying out of the word of the game or the word of life. So what is the author telling us? The word of the game is the same thing as the word of life, as it is called. As the bishop is exhorted to hold fast the faithful word, citing 1 Titus 9, which is a sort of whoop or puss, give me a little water. The faithful word being the deity whose name is spelled capital AMMON. And it is never till they cry, capital AMMON, that the fervent prayer monger rises from his knees, takes his hands away from his eyes, and seems as if he just recovered his lost senses. So we need to read further to see what the author is talking about. So let's go to the next paragraph. But it is especially to be observed that this mystical operation of seeking, the capital Lord, is always to be performed with the eyes shut. So it appears to me that he's talking about a Masonic ritual, or at least only squinting between their fingers. there being nothing that religious people are so much afraid of as letting in too much light upon their dark fooleries. So I think the author is referring to the Freemason religion of searching for the lost secrets of Hiram Abiff. And then maybe he's also talking about other religions too. But let's continue. It is the self same game of the nursery. Uh-oh, y'all. Again, the author is calling these adults children, having a child's mindset. So let me highlight that, okay? Where are we? Are we somewhere? Am I in the right paragraph? Self-same. Okay, here it is. Here it is. So take a look at this, y'all. The highlighted part. And as we read, think about yourself. Okay, think about you. Don't think about somebody else as we continue reading. Think about you. Okay, so let's begin. It is the self same game of the nursery. That's games of babies. Only the big fools are playing at it. The big fools would be you, the adult. Only the big fools or adults are playing at it instead of the little ones. That would be the babies, the children. The game of shut your eyes. So clearly, he's talking about your intellect, your ability to criticize and analyze, right? The ability to ask intelligent questions and to think logically. Only the big fools are playing it instead of the little ones. The game of shut your eyes, that is, turn off your critical and analytical mind and open your mouth and see what capital God will send you. So basically, the author is saying you're playing the game of a willful, intentional idiot, a fool, because you closed your eyes of intellect, right? And you open your mouth to what? To see what capital God would send you. That's your imagination. You turn off your analytical mind and then you just start imagining stuff. And then you believe those imaginations. This is the author's point, in my opinion. Perhaps you have a different understanding, but that's the way I'm understanding it. Let's continue. Only the worst on it is that the 40 or 50-year-old babies, when we won't play with them at hide and seek, are for changing the game into prisoners' bars. So in other words, the religious leaders, these Freemasons, they want you to play hide and seek. You go search for the hidden doctrine, the lost doctrine that must be found. You put all your time, all your energy, all your money, monthly tithings, double tithings, putting up with people who can't stand you and who you can't stand. You do all of this work trying to discover, trying to find the hidden and lost doctrine so that you can live in the kingdom or go to heaven or get resurrected or not burn in hell, right? But if you don't want to play that game, they're going to lock you up. They're going to take you to court. The religious leaders will take you to court and try to put you in prison. Try to put you in prison or kill you, right? Let me rephrase that, or make you unalive. I don't know if that's going to hurt the YouTube algorithm. That word. Don't put that word in the chat. Use unalive if you're going to comment on that. So let's read this again. Only the worst of it is that 40 and 50-year-old babies, it's like people you would see on Sonetta channel, right? 40 and 50-year-old men behaving like 2-year-old toddlers arguing about doctrine and religion. Foolishness. Only the worst of it is that the 40 and 50-year-old babies, when we won't play with them, when we won't play hide and seek with them, are for changing the game into prisoners' bars. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? You start telling the truth, they're going to want to lock you up. So you better have your supporters. You better have people who are loyal and faithful to you, who will support you, because they're going to come after you when you start telling the truth. Prisoners' bars. The author tells us that he was put in prison twice by these Freemason, by these preachers and reverends and pastors who were secretly Freemasons. Locked him up twice and then branded him as the devil's chaplain, a preacher for the devil, right? Because he told the truth. So if you're going to tell this truth, you better be prepared, and you better have some people who support you no matter what, because they will come after you. That's what the author is telling us. All right. So let's continue. A dirty trick that serves when they dare not attempt to grapple with the man's argument. So in other words, well, they're going to lock you up, try to get you locked up, but they're not going to address anything that you exposed about the Gospels, about astrotheology, about Freemasonry's connection to the gospel, so on and so forth. They're not going to even deal with that. Why? Because they can't. This is what the author's meaning is. They're not going to deal with it because they cannot. But what they can do is get you locked up or get you made unalive, right? All right. So let's see. Let me go back to check the comments now. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me see what we got here. All right. Let's see. Okay. Roderick's point of view writes, thinking back now, that explains why churches keep you there all day long and have you at church 3 or 4 times a week. They keep your mind tied down and you can't think. Man, that's a great point. That's a great point. Keep you busy. Gary Tucker writes, cleanliness is next to godliness. Yes, indeed. Roderick writes, good stuff. He continues, true at Gary Tucker. It's nowhere to be found in scripture. Gary Tucker writes, my, oh my, religion is for dummies. He continues, no matter how hard one tries, they always fall short of the prize. SMDH. Martel McCoy writes, I'm waiting for an aha moment, but nothing yet. Roderick's point of view writes, could he also be talking about how they tell you to bow your head and close your eyes when praying? That's when you're seeking the deity. Roderick's point of view, I think you are correct. So I agree with Roderick's point of view. That paragraph where we read about covering of the eyes, I thought it had to do with Freemasonry ceremonies. I think Roderick is correct. It has to do with closing your eyes when you pray, right? And sometimes people will peek out of their eyes when they're praying, right? So thank you, Roderick's point of view. I agree with you. All right, y'all. So if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoyed this content. Also, like and share the video. That's not only going, and also one more thing. If you haven't commented in the comment section, put some comments in there, because your point of view, your experience in life really does matter. It really can help somebody, whether or not you realize that or not. You might be the person who that person looking for, wanting answers resonates with, right? So let me say thank you to Gary Tucker and Roderick's point of view for holding it down in the comments. You know, because you scholars are here, it allows me to focus on reading and presenting the text. So I really, really appreciate that. You know, I'm confident that you all are going to keep things in order in the comments section. So thank you very much for doing that for me. The comments make these presentations most outstanding. Okay, most outstanding. So that's really, really appreciated. So thank you, scholars, so very much. All right, now let's continue. There's so much to talk about in this chapter. Really, really so much to talk about that we've read up until now. But I want to continue. How long have we? Yeah, okay, so yeah, we still got time. I want to continue. There's some stuff in this chapter, man. Okay, so let's continue. Last paragraph on page 266 is where we are. Thus, when the wise and studious had compared the glorious ark of heaven. Now, y'all check this out. Let me pull it up. This is something we need to visualize. So let's get into the glorious ark of heaven. So let's pull up our standard, our go-to image of the celestial heavens. Let's pull it up because we're going to need this now. All right. So let me, scholars, focus your attention on the image, the illustration of the celestial heavens that we always go to as I read. All right. So we're going to refer to this as I read. Thus, when the wise and studious had compared the glorious ark of heaven to the vaulty dome of a magnificent temple, it was much wiser to jump to the conclusion at once that it was Solomon's temple. All right, now, okay, so scholars, here we see from what we've just read that there's going to be a comparison between Solomon's temple and the Ark of Heaven. Okay, at one time, these two things were thought to be the same. The author is saying he's going to show that they are not the same. All right, so we're thinking astronomically right now. Let's continue. Thus, when the wise and studious had compared the glorious ark of heaven to the vaulty dome of a magnificent temple, it was much easier to jump to the conclusion at once that it was Solomon's temple than to take any pains to learn astronomy. Who knows, but that there might have been such a temple. He's talking about that there might have been a real Solomon's temple, I'm assuming. And certain it is that very fine temples have been built precisely as, okay, so let me show this word because let me stop this share and show y'all the document, okay? Because there's a word here that I can't make out, and I want to have it on the video for the record. So just bear with me, y'all. So here we are, right here, that highlighted word. I can't make out what that word is. If somebody understands what that is, let me know in the comments section. Precisely as whatever this word is, globia and Iduranians or orreries are constructed at this day, in which the great model of what astronomers and philosophers have observed in the visible heaven has been represented in the forms and ornaments of our churches, cathedrals, and chapels to this day. So in other words, the author is telling us that these churches and cathedrals, chapels, they have what? They have visible representations of the celestial heavens. So astronomy or astrology, right? That's what he's telling us. He continues, the original devisers. So now who were the original devisers? These would have been Moors, Moors. Moors are the original architects and builders of those grand, great, illustrious buildings that are now being used as churches and cathedrals and chapels. Isn't that right? That is exactly right. The original devisers intending them as temples of science. So we know from Moorish science that the mosque or temples were places of learning. They were universities where science was taught. Dr. Ben brought that to our attention. Taj Tariq Bey brought that to our attention. And many other scholars have told us this. The original devisers intending them as temples of science. The barbarians into whose hand they have subsequently lapsed. So there we are, y'all. There we are. Unum Sanctum and the Renaissance. Unum Sanctum, papal bulls, and the Renaissance, the doctrine of discovery. Oh, there's another one. There's another doctrine that the hybrids are using in the United States. What is it called? There's another doctrine, y'all, where they're taking people, where they're taking our land. They just take it. What is that doctrine called? You know, I need to do a video on this topic. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, so this is when he's talking about. This is when the hybrid troglodyte paleoliths came into power and took these grand, great structures and converted them into churches, cathedrals. All right. They were barbarians, weren't they? They came out of the mountains. They were uncivilized. The barbarians into whose hands they have subsequently lapsed, perverting them into means of perpetrating the first and grossest conceits which infancy could form, and thus binding down the child who, when he was a child, did think as a child and spoke as a child, when he became a man, to be a great child as ever. So in other words, he's a child in a man's body. And to this day, you will see the 40-year-old babies running away from the rotunda. The rotunda is the location where the author gave these astrotheology lessons. Why are they running away? Because their priests and rabbis and reverends, so on and so forth, branded the author as the devil's chaplain and told them don't go there because they would lose their salvation. They would burn in hell, so on and so forth. It's wicked, it's evil, da 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 da. For fear anything should be explained to them. So in other words, the author is saying that their reverend, etc., knew that if they went to the rotunda, Robert Taylor would be exposing astrotheology. He would expose all of the free Masonic secrets about the Gospels, right? So let us continue. For fear anything should be explained to them. That's about astrotheology and the origin of the gospel being Masonic. And praying to capital God, these adult children, that they may die in the same faith that they were born in. Born a Christian, you die a Christian. You're born a Catholic, you die a Catholic. You're born a Baptist, you die a Baptist. and so be brought down, that's down into death, no wiser than they were brought up, that is, brought up being born. But now for demonstration. How long have we been going? But now for demonstration, I don't know if I want to go into, let me see, y'all. We might, let me see if I want to do this. I think we'll stop now, because if we go further, I'm going to have to get into a long discussion about the about the uh, the royal ark, or the, excuse me, the ark of heaven. Okay, so now Appalachian Joe L writes, Islam, greeting to all. Islam, Appalachian Joe L, good to see you. Which page? Today we had to repeat what we presented yesterday, but we didn't get as far. Okay, so we started today on page 263, which is the lecture on Freemasonry, part 3. And we are presently on page 200. Oh, hold on, y'all. We're on page 267. We're on page 267. I think we should not go beyond here, because, again, this is going to get us into a lengthy discussion on the pillars. Y'all remember the pillars? So we're going to discuss the pillars, if y'all remember them, the 2 pillars, Jachin and Boaz. And we will need to take some time to thoroughly go through those, because I really want everybody to get a firm understanding and to remember that. Okay, so that answers your question, Appalachian Joe L. Let's see, now we have Martel McCoy writes, Islam, Martel McCoy. Welcome. I appreciate you adding a comment. All right, so let me close out now, y'all, with the reminder. Thank you to everyone who has ordered 101 Ancient Ibaryath. Do appreciate it. And this class, this streaming online course, 101 Ancient Ibaryath, will definitely change your life in the positive, powerful way. It's going to teach you tools and concepts and principles that the author is deploying. As I'm reading the book, I can see his use of these principles and concepts. Okay, so when we talk about philology, we're talking about what? Etymology, other principles and concepts of linguistics, also history, right? History and reading something in context. So you're going to get all of this in this online streaming course. You're going to learn 225 Ibaryath vocabulary words. But more important than all of this is that this is going to help you to understand what they're calling the Hebrew scriptures without needing a teacher. So you don't need somebody to tell you what it means. You see all the problems that has created, right? By you having to depend on translators, because they do want something from you. They want your mind, and they want your property, and they want your babies and your man or your woman, your husband or your wife. They want it all. All right? They want it all, and you can believe that. Unum sanctum, doctrine of discovery. All right, etc. They're using religion also in government to take everything you got. So subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibaryath, and you will learn how to translate yourself. You won't even need me. Now, mind you, this is an intensive, comprehensive course. So it's fun, it's entertaining, it's exciting, but it's not easy. But the great thing is you take your time. Take your time, right? The more you see it, the easier it'll get. Come to our Saturday class, 10 a.m., and you can see these same skills being used by scholars just like yourself. Everybody started where you are right now, not knowing anything, coming to class and seeing all of this stuff happening, right? All of this stuff happening. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll be able to do the same things that you'll see our powerful scholars doing. Okay, they all started the same place as you. All right, so if you want to support us financially, you can always buy our books, subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibaryath, and you can give a one-time or recurring cash payment, right? Or you can enroll in our Saturday 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time class, or you can buy any of our books. So right now, I'm promoting, I want everybody to buy several copies of 911 Ancient Ibaryath. Well, let me repeat that. I want everybody to buy several copies of the book that you're looking at here on the screen, which is 911 Ibaryath Rescue, okay? Now, this book is a complement to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. That's a streaming course. This is a complement to it. So if you want to support us because you like the content, you believe in what we're doing, you want to back us, or you want to be a part of us, be sure to buy as many copies as you can afford and give them to your family and friends, okay? But if people want to argue, then don't do that, right? Because we don't have to evangelize, and no need to waste time arguing with people. All right, so now we have several books. We have 7 books listed in the description area of these videos that you can order. Okay, one of the books that I like to promote is The Animals in the Bible because it's such a beautiful book. I mean, it is so colorful. It's for babies, for children, and adults, y'all. And this book is so phenomenal. The reason why it's so phenomenal is because it's glossy, it's shiny, it has all or just about all of the animals in the Bible. This is it right here. It's glossy, it's 4-color, which means full color, and we're basically giving it away. It's only $9.99, y'all. You see this book? This is a beautiful and amazing book. It will grab your baby or your young child or high schooler's attention, right? Now, you see the top line, it has the Ibaryath word. The bottom line, it tells you how to pronounce it. And then the last line, it gives you the English rendering, okay? So this is a wonderful book. I mean, this is one of the books I like best. This book is great for visual learners. So that would include babies and children, right? High schoolers too, and adults, It's 4 colors, and it's glossy. And it's only $9.99. I mean, go compare this on Amazon to other books like this, and you'll see they don't compare at all. So if you want to support us, go ahead and do that. That would be an amazing thing for us if you would begin to buy our literature. Okay, that helps us to put on better videos, more professional videos, buy equipment, and just professionalize everything. Okay, things will get better. All right, so now let's take a look. This is the description area of the video. All right, you see Astrotheology, the Devil's Pulpit. Okay, so all of our Astrotheology videos, this information is here. So you'll see a link to donate, right? This is our paypal.me. Okay, so you'll see the link. It's there for you to donate one time or recurring. You'll see the link for the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. Okay, there's the link right here. So go subscribe now. Don't wait, y'all. Don't put it off. Again, this is the link to donate, to highlight it right here. All right. This is our Saturday 10 a.m. class, 506 The Curses, where we do a word for word analysis and evaluation. That's every word in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 through 29. This is phenomenal. You haven't seen anything. If you think you've been learning some stuff in this book, The Devil's Pulpit, wait until you come to our class on Saturday at 10 a.m. and see the kind of stuff that you're going to learn. All right. Okay, so now here's our recommended book list. We have 7 books. The links are all here. This is for those people who want to support us financially. You don't have to just give money. You can buy our books, right, for yourself and for others. Everybody, every Yasharala man or woman, okay, should have a copy of these books in their library. Everybody. And then here's Animals in the Bible that we talked about just now. So all of these books are there. Or you can go to our website, zionlawschool.org, click on the products tab in the menu, and then this will take you to all the books. But this is easier. And if you don't already have The Devil's Pulpit, the free PDF, here's the link for the free PDF, okay? Right here. Just click on this link. It'll take you to the PDF and you can download it. I highly recommend that you print it. Highly recommend that you print this PDF, okay? All right. So that was a lot. And I am tired of talking. So thank y'all, scholars in the audience, for spending your time with me this evening. I hope that you learned a lot. I hope that you were entertained if you didn't learn anything. And I also hope that you will discuss this with your significant other and also your babies, okay? Discuss it analytically. Don't accept it, discuss it, all right? And then put in the comment section what your views are on the matter. There's a lot. I think we need to do a call-in show. Y'all let me know if y'all want to do it. If you want to do a call-in show to discuss these matters, put a 1 in the comment section. But definitely, the next presentation tomorrow, we definitely need to do a call-in show. All right, we definitely need to do a call-in show on tomorrow's presentation. So if y'all can, read in advance, okay? If you're able, if you got time, read in advance. But let's start doing a call-in show so that we can discuss these things, because there's some profound stuff that's being presented, especially tomorrow. And if we have a video for people who are unfamiliar with the topic, especially people who are coming straight out of Christianity or another religion, right? Or if we have people who are former Hebrew Israelites who have been discouraged, or if we have Hebrew Israelites who are, in it, but discouraged, and they're looking for something else, they're confused, a call-in show on these topics would help them greatly, to come out of whatever painful situation that they're in, or, just make some corrections and adjustments in their life that would help them. All right, y'all. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. Thanks again, Gary Tucker, Roderick's Point of View, Appalachian Joel. Appreciate y'all holding down the comment section so that I could focus on the presentation. Really, really appreciate that. Can't say thank you enough. And welcome to Martell McCoy. This is the first time I've seen you comment, so I appreciate it and look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. I think tomorrow, y'all, we're gonna have to do this at 9 o'clock. We'll see. I don't know what time I'm gonna schedule it for, because Saturdays I teach a class at 10 a.m. in the morning. So I might 9 or 9:30, one or the other. But anyway, Islam to all the Moors. Islam to all the Moors, regardless of what nation you come from. And then Shalawama to the house of Yasharallah. I am referring to Genesis chapter 2. All of us are Moors. Genesis chapter 10, Table of Nations. And then, of course, Jubilees chapter 8, the land allotments. All natural people are Moors according to law. You can look that up in the Black's Law Dictionary by looking under land. Also watch the videos on Zion Law School here on YouTube. The title is something like Moors are the law, are the gods and the law on earth, or something like that. You'll get all of that information. So we are the same people. Shalawama and Islam to all of the Moors.